Welcome back to Java. Today I'm going to teach you the most basic variables in Java, primitive types. This is Top Spec, I'm Aaron. If you didn't catch the last tutorial, make sure to click the card in the upper right hand corner because we're going to be picking up right where we left off last time. So as I already said, we're covering the basic primitive types today. Essentially, a primitive type is just a very easy way to store any sort of small information in your programs. There are 8 different primitive types, but chances are at this level you're only going to be messing around with booleans, ints, and doubles. So, first let's talk about ints. Int, as you can probably guess, is short for integer, and thus, as the mathematical term implies, they can be any whole number, positive or negative. To begin defining an int, type int, then the name that you'd like to assign to your integer value. I'll just name mine test1 for now. Then add an equal sign followed by the value and a semicolon. The value you choose can be any integer between the numbers -2,147,483,648 and 2,147,483,648. So essentially, you have a lot of freedom with ints, but the AP test might ask you about that. That being said, what is important is the equal sign and the semicolon. The equal sign is what tells the compiler that you're setting the integer to a value, and the semicolon is what says that the statement is over. To use this int in a message, we'll concatenate our variable to the message we set in the previous video. If you've never heard of concatenation, it's basically just a special term that programmers use when you're combining a message with a variable or 2 messages together. Anyway, we can do this by adding a plus sign following the end quote of our message, and then writing the name of our variable. If you try running this, you should successfully get the message followed by your number. Next we have doubles, which are much like ints, but they're more versatile. They can store any value that an int can store and everything in between. So if you're working with fractions or decimals with things like currency, this is your go-to primitive type. However, the largest advantage that doubles have over ints is their accuracy with division. To show you this, I've written out this statement that divides the value I assign my variable, which is 10, by 3. Instead of updating the value to 3.3 repeating as expected, it becomes 3. This is because ints are integers, and as the name implies, they always stay as integers even when divided. And so when they are divided, they always round down. Depending on what you're trying to do, this could be extremely helpful, or it could be not what you're looking for. So to define doubles, you do it almost exactly like you do with ints, except you'd obviously replace int with double. Again, after we pick a value for our variable, we'll concatenate this to our message to make sure it's set as we envisioned. It should show the exact value you typed in. Booleans! Booleans! I'm just kidding, it's Booleans. If you've never programmed before, Booleans might sound a little bit intimidating, but I promise that they are the easiest of all of these primitive types. All a Boolean can store is true or false, or basically 1 or 0. These are going to be critical to conditionals and if statements, which we are going to learn about in a future video. To define a Boolean, format it the exact same way that you would an int or double, but you guessed it, type Boolean in place of int or double, and replace the numerical value with true or false. Notice that you don't need quotes around true or false. At this point, you should understand concatenation and the formatting for primitive types, but if you feel like it, go ahead and add the message statement like you did before and test it. It should simply print true or false like expected. And to set the pattern for these videos, I have saved the most complicated thing for last. Strings. Strings are technically not a primitive type, but they are critical to basic data storage, so I'm lumping them into this video. Last video we established that what we're coding in right now is called a class. Strings essentially refer to the string class, which is something that's already built into Java. What the string class does is it automatically links together individual characters. So if you had the word hello, it would link H-E-L-L-O all into one sequence, and you could refer to it as a whole rather than the individual characters. And so Java does that for you. Up until now, every primitive type that we've learned has began with a lowercase letter. However, this is not true for strings because they aren't primitive types. Strings begin with a capital S, and like we learned in the last video, the names of classes all have to start with a capital letter due to the rules of camel case. Notice that there are no spaces between the words, and every word in the sequence begins with a capital letter. This type of formatting is referred to as camel case. While it won't always cause issues in your program if you don't follow it, it's a standard in the programming world, and if other people are going to be reading your programs and trying to understand them, it makes everything easier. This is a lot of technical terms, and so it's not necessarily important to completely understand these right now, but it's important to start thinking about them. The only other small difference is following the equal sign, you're going to need a set of quotes that surround the value that you're going to be assigning to the string. This time in our concatenated message, we're going to be testing one of the methods within the string class with our variable. We're going to be delving more into using and creating methods in future tutorials, but all you really need to know is that they're little pre-written snippets of code. The string class actually has over 50 methods that we can use, but today we're just going to test out the length one, which, as the name implies, gets the length of our string. If you've ever coded before, methods are Java's equivalent of functions. To call our method, instead of typing our string's name, we'll need to add a period followed by length with a set of parentheses. This period tells Java that you are accessing a method within the string class, and length requires a set of parentheses after it because that is the standard for calling methods. We're finally done! That was a lot of information, and so if it helped you in any way, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Once again, I'm Aaron. Thank you for watching.
Don't rain on me.